You're listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses in the episode for Friday, January 17th, 2025.
It is. We're already in the second week of the quarter, Dan. I'm already behind. I'm shits everywhere. What I love is I told myself this quarter will be easier because I'll have done everything already. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, but what if I changed everything? You know, it's that kind of thing. Like you look back, like, no, that assignment didn't work this way. Let me change it. Oh no, that lecture wasn't good because of this. Let me change it. And don't get me wrong, like it's easier, but boy, oh boy, it's not. Whatever mindset I had that this was going to be the like, oh, I got on autopilot now. Nope. Which actually, I will say, I think that's a good thing. I do think there are faculty out there who, once they've done it
for 35 years,
right? Like once you do it once, you never have to change it. So I don't feel bad. I mean, I was thinking of the fact that I still remember sitting in a class in the year of our Lord 2022, and the professor's lecture slides not only had a copyright of 2014, but they had a copyright of 2014 with someone else's name on it.
Nice.
But not like a book company, like another professor in the department. So like, wow, not only are you using their shit, you're using their almost 10-year-old shit in computer science, which I have no doubt has changed no way whatsoever in 10 years.
Computers haven't changed since 2015 at this point. But yeah.
So anyway, so I've been a little bit busy. That may explain why there was no episode last week. You're welcome, audience.
Yes.
I know you all needed a break from us.
Well, I took the break to, well, you know what? Let's just do that. Because you're busy. I'm actually getting ready to do some traveling before school starts up for me in the following week, or actually next week, as of the time you're hearing this, dear listeners. So let's just run through some of the nerdy geeky stuff we've been doing this week. So, Andrew, what has been your week in geek like this week? You like nighttime ibuprofen so I can sleep 8 hours instead of stressing out about teaching all.
No. I handle stress by ignoring it and just playing video games.
That's healthy.
That's healthy. I do realize that, like, while I really enjoy the teaching thing, there are periods where I feel like, I have too much to do, and there's part of my brain that's like, I have too many things going on. What if I just played a video game? Which I get poor stress reaction. It's a reflection of just having so much crap going on, you know. And don't worry, I managed to make it through. Through a regular regiment of uppers and downers, I'm able to thread the needle. No, actually, I would take a minute. I want to talk about, and I think I mentioned it a little bit last week, but I am on the cutting edge of video game entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, listeners. I got a new video game.
Okay.
During the holiday break, during the Steam sale, and actually a lot of other people got a hot new item.
Did you buy No Man's Sky again?
No. I don't have to. You only buy it once. No, but speaking of a game from 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago, I, in fact, bought Assassin's Creed Origins.
Oh, yes. Assassin's Creed Pyramid.
Like Assassin's Creed Egyptian era, Roman era Egypt.
Yeah.
And
I have played that game. It's been many years ago.
You're like, shit, man, that was old when I played it. I played it years ago. Right. No, it was actually like $6 on the Steam sale. And I remember you talked about it. Other people talked about it. I'm like, what, $6? What could go wrong? Right. And I'll take a minute to talk about the game. But what I really want to actually quickly focus on is why the game on Steam has... Steam does two things. It does overall reviews and recent reviews. So you'll see sometimes like overall reviews are like bad, but recent reviews are good, or vice versa. If you were to look at right now, look it up right now on Steam, you would see that while all reviews, over 100,000, are mostly very positive, recent reviews over 3,000 are mixed. And this has probably been the most entertaining part of the game. Why, Andrew, are people posting mixed reviews? Well, as it ends up...
Andrew, why are people posting mixed reviews so recently?
As it ends up, a lot of people like me bought it on the Steam sale for $6 because it was advertised as like deep discount, right? Like, yeah, you got to buy this game. It's so cheap, you got to buy it.
Also the name of my sex tape.
Deep discount. Well, as it ends up, a recent patch to Windows 11 rendered the game unplayable. Yeah, so I guess the most recent Windows 11 update as of November changed something that a bunch of Ubisoft games relied on. And so like 5 or 6 Ubisoft games basically would start and then crash within like 6 minutes.
Is this the next phase of companies utilizing AI? All of a sudden, Microsoft is like, we're going to use AI to prejudge the games you buy. Well, so Microsoft Windows is like, no, this game sucks. We're not going to let you play
what's funny is because it was like 6 Ubisoft games that seemed to have been affected by it. There was a Star Wars game. Wow. I think it was Star Wars Outlaws. There was some other game I don't remember. And then there was like 3 or 4 Assassin's Creed games. Origins, Valhalla, and Odyssey. So I think maybe it's just 3. I'm probably forgetting something, but it was kind of this thing where it was like
the 3 most recent ones,
other than the most recent one, right?
Right.
And so it's of course like suddenly the review, all these people bought it really cheap and now can't play it. And that was actually my experience as well. It's actually why it's like, well, shit, let me see if it works on the Steam Deck. So I pulled the Steam Deck out. I normally only use a Steam Deck when I'm like traveling and stuff like that, but now like let's see if it works. And lo and behold, it ran fine. So for a couple of days I was playing, I did that very adult thing of sitting on your couch playing a portable game system.
Well, there you go.
And then actually I read elsewhere that the other solution was to roll back your Windows update to a previous version, which I did because that computer only exists to play games on Steam.
Right.
So
you want to be able to play your games.
Yeah. But that was my fun side of that story. Other than that, it is it's a very Assassin's Creed. It is, I think, the first of the era where they take on the very like RPG like elements.
They definitely, and they changed like a lot about it from basic controls even, much more combat heavy, it's which actually opened it up to a broader to a broader audience and made it even more successful than the series already was, and got it out of the funk that it had been in with a series of probably not well received.
Well,
games.
there was France, and then the steampunk one or the industrial,
right? Unity and Syndicate.
And what I will say though, the one thing I actually thought about when I was playing it is I actually played Syndicate briefly. I didn't get that far, but when I played Syndicate, I remembered. This is like my big comment here. I remember the review because Syndicate came out at the same time as Metal Gear Solid 5, right. And they talked about how like there were some similarities in the concepts of the game, except that like with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, it looks like you can walk anywhere, but every time you try to, like the parkour auto walker takes you to somewhere you weren't fucking expecting, right? Whereas like in Metal Gear Solid 5, you just walk somewhere and you're like, oh, I'm gonna walk to the edge of that cliff, and you just fall over, and you're like, well, shit, I didn't know I could die, right? Origins feels a lot. I have a certain sense. There's still some of the parkour takes over, but it was this sense that like if I saw something, I'd run up to it and like, I could try climbing that wall. Like, oh shit, you didn't know, you just climbed that wall. Or you walk over the edge, oh, you just fall off that wall. Although usually you don't fall off, you grab a ledge and you start climbing down. You're like, oh, that was really cool. It's been interesting. I always like their bizarro alternate, not like mixed real history with video game, like, oh, you didn't know that blah-de-blah was going to work with the assassins to do the blah-de-blah? And you're like, no, I really didn't expect that, actually. That was a twist. You're like, but, it's fine. They want to make these games somewhat historically related. So I've been having fun. I've been having fun with it. I don't know how far through it I'll get. I mean, there's a lot of, because what I bought was like the full gold deluxe packs edition, deluxe pass, because it was like the liquidation sale version. So I'm not sure how, like, if I just get through like the main story or whatever, that would, I'll probably feel fine with it.
Right. That's basically what I did. Yeah.
And But yeah, I think with these Assassin's Creed games, what I realize is that I have fun with them for a while, and then if I go a little bit hard and then be like, ugh, I'm done with this series, and then I wait a couple of years and then like start over, right? Like not start over the series, but like find whatever game I get my hands on and do the like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Play it for a while until I get tired. So yeah. I'm kind of interested in this one. I can already see as a game series how this one is already laying ground for the next one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like, those three you mentioned, Origins, Odyssey, and
Valhalla.
Yeah, they are all like apparently pretty heavily linked.
Valhalla is connected to Mirage, which is the one that came out recently. But yeah, definitely already. You just like they're saying shit where you're like, I already know that's in Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is when you give him the little knifey blade thing, like this was used to kill Xerxes with body blood. I'm like, no, I swear to God. Oh yeah, no, that's a scene from Odyssey. Like, okay, which it's fine. Like they're building their weird bizarro world with like magic aliens. I fucking sure.
Yeah. You've played. You played 4, right? I
played Black Flag, and I played the Rogue, which I thought that like those when I played them, I thought they worked really well. I don't think I could go back and play them just because the kinks show, a little bit too much.
Whoa!
Not that kink, but like just the
you go to show the name of your sex tape. Sorry, I'll stop doing that now.
Yeah, let's stop naming our sex tapes. No, I just like one of the things I realized by the end of Black Flag was there was so much same that like it really starts to show where you're like, wow, this isn't a big open world, it's a big open copy pasta,
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Origin is necessarily that much better, but it's more compelling because it's fucking Egypt, right? Like,
cool. Yeah.
You run through some sandy place and you're like, I bet you it's sandy. Where like when you sail around the Caribbean and every fucking shanty town is the same footprint with the same cut, you're like,
right.
Oh man, I've been to this one already,
Yeah. When I remember, I think, it was Origins because I haven't played any Assassin's Creed past that. But like, I remember, I think I bought I unlocked it because I think I bought Final Fantasy 15. But there was like some weird crossover DLC.
Oh,
with it. I had that night. I got this nightmare chocobo camel thing that was like what I think I actually put my recorded video on the episode I talked that. Yeah, it was from Reverent Irreverence and. May 17th, 2019. Yeah, so, there's a video. Oh, it's a nightmare.
So what I think is funny is I remember you talking about that, and I was like, I guess maybe I don't have that DLC or whatever because I just did not find this nightmare fueled camel. And then I go somewhere and there's just the weird shit like, oh, you see a comet in the distance or whatever, and I'm like, wait, isn't this it? But what surprised me is it took me quite a while to get there. I thought that would be something you'd see very quickly. So yes, I too found the nightmare machine. And
Ubisoft thinks a chocobo looks like
a choca camel.
Right.
Ooh, choca camel.
Oh,
that's
buddy.
A different sex
name of your.
So anyway, either way, Assassin's Creed Origin. Like I said, I do think that they definitely have a really conceptually interesting game that they do. I think I'm always reminded when I play this game though that I think this game would appeal to me 1,000% more if it were more of a 2D platformer, like Prince of Persia-esque. Because
that run Chronicles, right?
Well, the 3 that they made, which were not great, but like that was getting closer to like I like the 2D platform game rather than the 3D whatever. Different play experience, but like
you should try that new Prince of Persia game that came out.
I mean, and I will in like 10 years, right?
Yeah, because it's a Metroidvania, basically.
Pump the brakes. I'll get there, when we're
I need to wait until it's fully seasoned, Dan.
Right, until my Windows won't run it anymore. That's the rule. But anyway, that's been my recent Week in Geek, Dan. What about you?
I've been exploring open worlds as well, Andrew, especially and
that's also the name of your sex tape. I'm sorry. Okay, we got to stop this.
This is the dad joke episode. Welcome, everybody. I'll give you a tip. Choke up on the bat, which is also the name. Anyway,
new year, new bad jokes, but only one.
But I've also been exploring open-ended desert country. Albeit on a planet in a galaxy far, far away. I'm also playing hot off the press game from 2023 though, called Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I don't know how many colons are in that title, but I think there's at least 2. It's a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I have also played and enjoyed for what it was. It's like a third-person action-adventure kind of Metroidvania kind of thing, but a 3D kind of exploration, combat kind of thing. Like the not too dissimilar from like those more recent Tomb Raider games, or honestly like those Assassin's Creed games starting with Origin. You just kind of walk around and see what you can find, but there's a narrative pushing you through the game overall. But there's a lot of space where you can just go and look at stuff. And,
go and explore every little point on your map and make sure you get all you do whatever tchotchke collect is there.
Right. The difference, though, is that there is like the Metroidvania aspect of it. This is more Metroid than anything. Well, don't worry about it. Let's not parse that word. But like there are parts where in the maps that you're like, I don't have the thing that allows me to go to that part of the map yet. So you can come back when you get that ability to phase through this force field, or you can do the double jump. And so you're always kind of thinking about places you've seen and whenever you get something new, and stop the narrative to go back and get stuff that actually holds not much value. But it's a fun game because it's a kind of a turn your brain off game. Not only because it's Star Wars, but it's got a good sort of a game feel. It's the character is fun to control. Cal Kestis is his name, and they did a really interesting job, especially in the sort of the vein of Metroid. If we're going to go with that sort of inspiration, is that one of the sort of jokes about Metroid is that every time you go to a new game, I ended the last game like this complete power fantasy with the gravity suit and just all the weapons, and then they got to concoct a way to make sure you lose all that stuff.
Take it all away from you.
Right. And so they actually do a good job this time of like, obviously it's not like Cal has forgotten all of his force powers and stuff like that. They do a good job of just kind of, he's been doing other stuff, and so maybe he's like kind of, he's not as powerful as he used to be, even though, but it's more like kind of starting at a different base level than he did in the first game, where you didn't know anything, and actually kind of iterating on what would a more powerful, more seasoned Jedi be learning further along in his career as a Jedi. And so it's fun to see what they're doing with that. And the one thing I'm really noticing more than I noticed when I played the first game is, and I'm really enjoying it. For some reason, I have the patience for it, and I usually don't. But like, there are a lot of really good, not too hard, but complicated enough to make you feel smart puzzles in the game. Usually environmental puzzles where I got to force push this, and then double jump off that, and then do a backflip, kill some stormtroopers, and then go solve this tone puzzle inside this temple or whatever. Right? Match the tones to the buttons you push from the machine or whatever.
I don't know. That's yikes. Like, you just behead a couple stormtroopers and wait, let me now do a puzzle.
yeah. Hey, guys, you are standing in the way of me, matching some symbols on a wall. So, but yeah, it's that aspect of it is really standing out to me, and I'm really enjoying that part of it. It's, to an extent, I feel like it's not emphasizing the combat as much, which is something I'm really gravitating towards in the games I've been playing lately. Games that don't just rely on shoot this, kill this, hurt that. Of course, there's still lots of that, as we mentioned with the stormtroopers. But the story is fine. Like, I'm not super gripped by it. It's Star Wars, and it's fun space opera adventure. Mostly it's like I want to find all the treasure chests to see what upgrade or what sort of aesthetic change I can make to a different part of my lightsaber. Or I'm like, ooh, I got some new pants. Let's see how those look.
I love the idea, like, I can make big changes to my lightsaber, or, ooh, new pants.
Or haircuts, yeah. I'm like, this is a blowback or a buzz cut.
I've got now a double-ended lightsaber with different kyber crystals in each side of the hilt, and new white pants.
These have sewn-in boots.
Ooh, I've got a classic Jedi brown robe.
I did get that. So yeah, there's a lot for every type of player in this game. Is what I'm saying. But it's been fun. The one thing I've also really noticed is it's the first time it's really stood out to me where on the PlayStation 5, they have, in the most games that are made for PlayStation 5, you can choose between two sort of settings or gameplay options, I guess, like performance mode or like visual mode or whatever, right? Where we'll lower the resolution so it holds at a steady 60 frames per second, or we can lock it at like 30 frames per second, but we'll turn on ray tracing. We'll have the high definition, what do you call it, like textures and stuff like that. I'm not a frame rate snob particularly, and this is the first time I've really noticed like this all looks really pretty. Holy cow! And so I'm, unlike a lot of games, I'm just running from place to place to accomplish the next task and make myself feel like I'm actually doing something with my life. I'm actually just kind of meandering and like looking out windows and look at this reflection. Isn't that neat? Wow.
It's like that scene from Star Wars where it's just them just hanging out, looking at a pond for a while.
Heck yeah! Look at that. Look at that.
As far as you're concerned, this whole game is that scene from A New Hope where Luke stares at the suns in the sky.
Yep, and that's how he went blind. Also, the name of my...
No, it's actually funny because, the idea of changing your options, like based on whatever, like video options, isn't something that console players have really dealt with much, although it's becoming a little bit more now that, especially there are different console options that do the same stuff. It's actually, but something I've thought about as well, because like, I realize I'm like, man, every game I get runs pretty well. And I realize it's because, I'm running them all at 1920 by 1080 in an era where everyone's now designing for 4K. Right. So, like, everything runs pretty smooth. I have all the things set up to high. And I'm like, oh, because I'm running at, a quarter of the resolution or whatever. Anyway, although I find that I actually don't, it's not something I thought about. Like, I'm like, I'm actually fine with how it is.
Yeah. Play at default settings.
So that's cool. Like there's, I will always say that, and I say this in the context that, someone just mentioned playing a Star Wars role-playing game, on this Discord I'm on. Even though it's a system I think is just a hot mess. Part of me was like, oh, and it's set a couple years before A New Hope, and I'm like, and I get out my Star Wars RPG books where it's all the shit from like the Rebels era, and I'm like, let's go. And I realized like, I mean. I've got rules to make a clone trooper here. Yeah. So there's something Star Wars always like, even sometimes like the not so great Star Wars can manage to like the not so good movies or games or shows can still capture scenes where you're like, that's a Star Wars moment.
Right. Well, that's one thing I've been fascinated with. Less the story and more like the writers on this game have done their work, and it feels like they're pulling from a deep lore, which they are, but like this old Jedi Master showed up and like, oh, we've heard so much about you, and like you were able to accomplish it. I'm like, oh shit, I'm looking this guy up. I'm like, should I ask Andrew about this guy? And they're like, no, they made him up for the game, but they fleshed him out so much and made him fit in with the just larger, Star Wars lore that I'm like, it fit. This game feels pretty well like grounded in that in the Star Wars canon and lore. It's been fascinating, but there's other stuff like Saw Gerrera keeps either being talked about or showing up, and that's always fun. I guess Forrest Whitaker needs a paycheck. I'm not sure.
Well, I wonder if it's Forrest Whitaker or the other guy that did it, right?
It's probably the other guy.
Well, the other guy only played the young version, I think. I think really? Forrest Whitaker played the Rogue One era version. I don't know though. It's one of those things. Well, it's just the same thing. Like sometimes there's a lot of different actors that play it. I mean, the one thing that with Star Wars is there's two like mixed bags to both of this. To this is like one is like, oh, there's this new Jedi who's blah blah blah, and like the first time that happens, you're like, oh wow, and then the second you're like, oh, okay, and then like 7 or 8 Jedi later, you're like, where have all you motherfuckers been? Like, because it's like, okay, when it was just one of you, I get it, or 2 of you, but now it's like, there's like 7 or 8 of these dudes that have all been hiding so well that none of them know about the others,
Yeah.
Even though like 20 years ago, they were all on the same group chat,
Yeah.
There's that, and the other side of the coin is it's a small world. Like,
yeah.
Oh, what, you didn't know that? Yeah, like, yeah, fucking Boba Fett's right around the corner. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's been busy. Yeah, he chased after you too. Oh yeah, and also he did that other thing. And like, damn, that's like the two, like the. And I realize I'm bitching about like, oh, keep adding characters, but then I'm also bitching about like, keep using the same characters.
It sounds like you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it's a very it's like a weird Star Wars thing. The other thing my other side complaint that affects this is the idea that in Star Wars every character has a backstory. This was the gag where there's a meme on the internet of like some shot from like Star Trek Deep Space Nine of like Kyrun Nerys and Chief O'Brien talking, and there's some random red shirt in the background, and the meme is like, oh, do you know his name and his backstory? No, you don't, because he doesn't have one. He's just an extra. But like in Star Wars, no, every character that walks by, like, oh, that's Blarty Vlark, and he's actually from Bloody Blah, and he actually met Han Solo at a cantina. And you're like, what is going on? Anyway, I digress. It sounds, I've heard good things. I'm glad you're having a good time with it.
Yeah. And if you wanted to check it out, I wouldn't hesitate, because I think especially if you have no problem sort of navigating, playing the game of Assassin's Creed Origins, it's not too different than that in terms of game feel, like I said, and controls and even stuff like that. It's a fun open world action adventure, third person, sci-fi fantasy game. And and then you could find the pants that you like the most in the game, and then we can compare.
Why is my Jedi survivor dressed like he's a clown?
Because they're the most dangerous of all. I have one more quick week in geek. It's more like a mention in geek.
Okay.
That's relevant to this show. As of this recording, I have completed 4 episodes of Agatha All Along.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah. It's a good little show. It's a weird show, isn't it? I think in terms of like just tone, it does some really wide swings where it seems really silly and goofy. I'm like, this is just a good old romp, to being very serious, to the point where like I was kind of surprised when people started cussing. I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. Not like negatively. It was just like, oh, this show is just really stretching the boundaries of what the MCU is and can do, which I think they've done a lot with their TV offerings more than they have with their movies. Now that Deadpool and Wolverine's come out, that the rules of what can be done in this sort of style has changed. But this show is really interesting. And,
the one thing that I will say, Jack Schaefer, I believe her name is, the showrunner, also the same person who did WandaVision. There's a similar aesthetic of every episode being like an homage to The Thing, or at least not all of them, but many of them. So like with WandaVision, a good 60% of the episodes were all a pastiche of an old sitcom.
Right.
In this one, there's a lot of references to witch movies and witch TV shows, which is really interesting. Like when I found out, I think I heard it in the interview, and I looked, and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly Practical Magic from 1997. Oh, that's I forget the movie from 1976. That's this one from wherever. Right. The first one is actually just the cop consulting show thing or whatever. But and I forget which, Mayor of Easttown, I believe, is what the first. But like, so the idea that they have all this like, and it's a style that they've kind of figured it out, and I think it works really well here.
There's one more on deck, like that's part of this little. Right, one more. Was Vision Quest? Isn't that kind of
yes?
Parcel with this sort of arc?
Yeah, it's not clear if it was going to be or what it's going to be, but now I suspect it's going to be. And weirdly enough, Vision Quest, last I heard, was actually being run not by Jack Schaefer, but by Terry Matalas.
Oh, right.
Which, given that he just kind of knocked Star Trek Picard season 3 out of the park,
right?
I you know what? Sure, we'll see what he does. Like, no rush, but because I also assume that at this point, it would be it's not clear if it's going to be a continuation of the stories from both shows or not. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I mean, who'd have guessed that the weird spin-off show that started as a gag, I think, and kind of had a weird bump in the road with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. I think is its own thing. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. And you've got however many episodes left. Like I said, I think I already said it. I really liked it. It's kind of my jam. I'm excited to hear someone else having a good time with it.
At this point, I've heard 2 versions of The Witch's Road.
You have heard, yes, you heard
the Conjuring version, and then
the chant version, I believe it's called, and then the weird
rock and roll, yeah,
the country rock whatever one from the first episode. Yeah. We just watched the one where I don't remember their names, but they went to basically the 70s house. Oh, the recording studio. So you've heard there's technically 2 versions of that episode. But also there's the one in the first episode you didn't realize was another take on the song. Oh, okay. The opening song for the first episode is the rock country version.
Oh yeah.
Where it's down, the road, down the winding. So you didn't realize that it's the same. Anyway. It's like when you hire Academy Award winning composers to do your song. I mean, I guess actually a friend was surprised. He was listening to the radio, which is this thing that I guess people still have. And they actually played basically they played the what they call the Fleetwood Mac version, which is the one from that 70s rock and roll episode. The idea it was played on the radio, right? Like someone wanted to hear that song. Well, and that someone may have been Disney. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. A good time. Super excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where it goes. So.
I know. I'll be curious. There are a few episodes that it'll be curious what your take on them, because there are several episodes that do some big twists or turns or whatever. For example, I think a lot of people say I think it's 9 episodes. Mm-hmm. There's the last 2 are kind of like they aired together, but the one right before it, which is the one where if you've seen the screenshot, they've got Agatha dressed as the Wicked Witch of the West, and Teen is dressed as Maleficent. Mm-hmm. That episode, actually, I would say some people don't like it because it's weird, but in retrospect, it may be one of, in my opinion, the best episodes of the show, because they do some big lifts with it. And I think they did really well, and they gave someone a really big time to just shine.
Nice,
and it's not who you think, which is why it's interesting. Anyway, so yeah, glad you're enjoying it. We'll talk more about it when you finish it.
Glad you're enjoying it. Name of your. So if you do listen,
we've had a lot of sex tapes this episode.
That's the
name of our.
That's our 2025. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page. Actually, no, I don't really think you can anymore. I worry that if you go to our Facebook page to have conversations, you're going to be talking to a bunch of AIs talking to themselves.
Hey, as long as they like and subscribe, I don't care.
Anyway, sorry. I mean, Facebook has turned into such a disaster. Hey, at least no one can say our show is bad because there's no fact correction anymore.
True.
Or fact checking.
There we go. You can also find
correction. I'm sorry.
Fact correction. They're playing at Harlow's on Friday. I hear they're really good. You can also find us on the specific social media that we actually go to and use, which means you can find me on Instagram, at least for now, at dbethelcomics. You can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find our show, and if you're actually listening to us on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4. They're both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 Attribution License.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using their proprietary metric, will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. I have a correction that I want to just kind of run at real quick. I got a lot of pushback, Andrew. From our previous episode, our sort of 2024 wrap-up episode. Talked about the thing from 2024 that really kind of summarizes or meant the most, or just kind of, our thing of the year. And I mentioned the television show Tales from the Loop, which was a very impactful show for me. And just mountains of nobody emailed me. But I felt guilty because it was not a show that was released in 2024. So I went actually back through our archives for a show. I'm like, what stuff did I consume during 2024? And I won't go into depth about it because I've already talked about it on the podcast. But there's a lot of good stuff that I could have and probably should have chosen from 2024. I think Godzilla -1 minus color, X-Men 97. I just totally forgot about. Furiosa, the Mad Max saga, that came out, and I really was surprised by that. But I think if I were to pull from the stuff that came out in 2024 that I found really kind of impacted me from consuming it going forward, I think it has to be just how pleasantly surprised I was by Godzilla -1 minus color. Seeing a movie in black and white, a Godzilla movie in black and white that was actually incredibly emotionally engaging, just was not on my 2024 bingo card, to use the parlance of our times. And so you can stop sending emails, delete what you're about to send, everybody. Dan's thing of 2024 was Godzilla -1 minus color. I hope you're happy.
I doubt it.
Nope.
The audience is never happy.
So until I disappoint you, dear listeners, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
Podcast. Woo. Zambonis.
What? Bim Zamboni. I'm pretty certain there's no Zamboni in DuckTales. Excuse me. Oh, you bored me so already. I'm tired, falling asleep.
Right now you do sound like my grandma. I don't know. What's the opposite of sex? Aside from the name of my sex tape.
My sex tape. The opposite of sex. Woo! Can you just talk about like some quick geeky thing that we did?
Okay.
A queek and geek.
A queek. I just did a queek.
Let's pretend like I never said that.
Yeah. Well, I bet you don't know what the episode title is going to be.